Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now the last time we tested the newly released Resident Evil Requiem we used my i7 4790K PC with a GTX 980 and found that with some sacrifices we could actually make the game playable. Today we're using the GTX 960, a 2GB card that is no longer supported with official GeForce driver updates, but it does get security patches still, and yeah, you can buy this for like half of the cost of the game itself here in the UK. So can we play it on a 2GB card? Well, let's jump into the settings first of all before finding out. Now, of course, we are going to set everything to its respective lowest. As you can see, I've got the i5-12400F in the system here, as well as the GTX 960 2GB. The 960 is available in a 4GB variant as well, and that will certainly be a better choice in 2026. So we've got everything set to its respective lowest. AA is off for now. If we look at the VRAM usage, well, we're pretty much maxing out that red bar. It says game usage is red and other applications are in like black and white, but there's no room for any other applications here. The game has taken up all of the card's VRAM, and we may see unexpected behaviour due to high memory usage apparently. So let's see if we do. Now I'm going to be running through the same part that you saw me test in the i7 video, simply because I have been a bit silly and deleted my save game for some reason. Not sure how I did that, but there we are. Now as we can see here, during this little opening sequence, we're getting about, well, it's not good, less than 20 frames per second. This is with anti-aliasing off as well, so bare minimum settings here. We haven't yet turned FSR on, which is a bit of a bonus. That means we do have some headroom to work with the GTX 960 here. As you can see from the memory usage and usage process, pretty much all of the 2 gigs has been gobbled up almost instantaneously, and the card is trying its hardest, pegged at 100% utilization, so we're certainly putting it to work here. I do still like the 960, it's a low power card as well, not going to consume much power. You can run it on a pretty weak PSU and it's still going to be able to play a few games just fine. What we'll actually do is turn anti-aliasing on to start with and see if that makes much of a difference. Now I'm expecting a little worse, but it should help alleviate some of those jagged edges, which I guess is sort of irrelevant because the game does look a little better here, but we have to look up to the sky to get 30 plus FPS. So yeah, that's not exactly an ideal way to play, walking along looking up at the sky. At least it would stop me from getting scared at all the things jumping out at me if I'm just looking away from the action, but it's going to be pretty hard to complete the game like that. Now as we move into the indoor areas, it's going to be interesting to see if performance picks up. As we can see here, however, moving into this little alleyway, and we are actually getting closer to 30 FPS, which is a good sign. That should mean that as we move indoors, performance will improve a little bit more. We'll just walk underneath this scaffolding here, make our way into the scary area of the game. Now, I'm not going to be scared like I was last time because I've played this before. I know what goes on for the first hour or so of this game, luckily, and hopefully if we do test this again with different hardware, yeah, I'll be a little further in. I won't delete my save game by mistake, however I did that this time around. So yeah, about 30 FPS here with the lowest settings, TAA plus FXAA on. Let's make our way indoors now. Now the frame rate should pick up, at least it has with other hardware I've tested. We should see a jump of about 5 to 10 FPS. That's what I'm expecting. If we can somehow turn the torch on here we go. Oh, okay, that's interesting. It's not really made that much of a difference. I was expecting a little bit more of a boost in performance, but we are more comfortably in the 30s here, about 32 to 35 with drops below 30 FPS still. So yeah, not actually much of an improvement to be honest, but plus 30 FPS with a lower end or older card like this is certainly playable in my book. It's trying its best and that's all we can ask for. Alright, so the cutscenes are still a bit choppy here. We drop below 20 FPS again basically when there's a cutscene occurring in game. I take it these are sort of real time, not pre-rendered, otherwise it would be, well, pretty smooth. So what I think we'll do now is enable FSR 3. Now I actually played around a little bit with the different FSR options, we have 3.1.5 and FSR1. FSR1 is going to look a lot worse, so you'd think that it would sort of perform better, but it doesn't. We actually see a worse frame rate with FSR1 than we do with FSR 3.1.5 with the 960 perhaps. Maybe it's because the FSR3 is better optimized, something like that, I don't know. But considering the image quality is better, we're just going to go ahead and use that. We're going to use performance mode. We're not going to drop quite to ultra performance just yet. I don't think that's quite necessary here. And as you can see, we've gained about 10 FPS using FSR performance mode, a nice increase from around 30 frames per second to the mid 40s, sometimes even touching on 50 frames per second. I even saw 60 briefly. We've seen it again here, but I am looking at a letter, so that's sort of cheating a bit, isn't it? But yeah, this is certainly a much better way to play with the 2GB 960 FSR 3.1.5 set to performance mode, and to be honest, visually I think it still looks okay. FSR 3, it's certainly come a long way since the original iteration of FSR, so you can certainly get away with more aggressive presets, as it were. Okay, so let's see what happens when there's a little more action on screen, just trying to escape from this crazy guy with his shotgun here. Pretty spooky, but yeah, we're still seeing 40 frames per second as the action heats up, around about the same as we were getting beforehand, between 40 and 50, so not bad at all. It's never going to end well when someone picks up a fire poker. Alright, so we've skipped ahead a little bit now, back to the outside area with a lot more going on here. We still have FSR 3.1.5 performance mode enabled, and as you can see, we're not quite getting that same level of performance as we were beforehand. We have dipped once again to below 30 FPS. Now, I've not played too much of this game. I don't know how much of it takes place outside and how much of it takes place inside. Obviously, inside you're going to get better frame rates, but let's drop our FSR preset down to ultra performance mode and see if this can help alleviate things in the outdoor portions of this game. Right, so it does help a little bit. We're back up to over 30 FPS. I said before, you may want to consider, if you're using an older card like this, switching between FSR performance and ultra performance modes, depending on what you're doing, but that can be a little tedious, I guess, sort of changing things depending on what's going on screen. Yeah, ultra performance mode hasn't really helped here either, to be honest. There's not too much of a significant difference. We're still getting under 30 FPS, and visually it looks significantly worse than performance mode. Oh, hello. Bit close for comfort there, I must say. Talk about an invasion of personal space. Yeah, we're looking at sub 25 FPS now, which isn't ideal. However, this is a third-person segment of the title as well, which doesn't feel as bad to play as the first-person elements with a lower frame rate. If we were getting this level of performance in first-person mode, I think it would feel a little more jarring, but perhaps that is just me. It's always nice to have as many frames as possible, but if you are using an older card like the 960 or another 2GB card with similar performance, then you can expect a playable result in Resident Evil Requiem, or what I would consider playable, plus 30 FPS in a lot of the levels, but there will still be some moments whereby we do get drops below this, even with FSR 3.1.5 set to ultra performance mode, so rendering internally at a very low resolution indeed. Oh, I think my tomahawk or my axe just missed that fella over there, unfortunately. What we'll do in a second is actually switch to FSR1, because I spoke about this briefly earlier and said that FSR1 looks worse and also performs worse. You'd think the opposite would be true, like because it looks so much worse we'd be getting higher levels of performance, but on the 960 at least it actually runs quite a bit lower in terms of the frame rates here. So let's just take care of these two guys. There we are, lovely. Oh, there's another one. Oh dear. Okay, let's just get rid of him. Have I got any ammo left? Yes. Should have reloaded really, but there we are. Let's jump back into the settings now. We'll switch to FSR1 mode. I always get confused there. I think, where have the graphics options gone? And they're under the image setting, of course. So we'll go to FSR1. Of course, we can't drop as low as ultra performance with this. we can only go as low as performance. We'll start with balanced, and yeah, there are a lot more jagged edges on screen. Things look a little blurry overall. That didn't really help the frame rate at all. As I said, it was probably a bit worse. We'll drop then down to performance mode just to give you an example, and yeah, we're getting like 20 to 23 frames per second, so stick with FSR 3 in this case. That's all for this one then. Resident Evil Requiem on a 2GB GTX 960. Better than I thought, but you will need to implement some upscaling in order to try and achieve a playable frame rate. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.